They dug up my peace roses first. Two uniformed officers sank their shovels into the soft earth where Harold had planted them for our 40th anniversary. I stood at the kitchen window, my knuckles white on the porcelain sink. My son, David, stood behind me, his hand heavy on my shoulder. "Mum, you need to sit down," he said, his voice thick. I didn't move. I watched the first black bag emerge from the flower bed. It was small, too small. "They found something," I whispered. "I know," David said. The weight of his hand felt like a shackle. We need to talk." The detectives had come at dawn with a warrant. They spoke of an anonymous tip, old case files, inconsistencies in Harold's service records. My Harold, a decorated veteran, a pillar of the quiet veterans' hall. Now they turned my garden, my sanctuary, into a grave. David guided me to the kitchen table. My daughter, Sarah, was already there, her face blotchy from crying. She couldn't meet my eyes. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. David took a deep breath. "Dad. He wasn't well. For a long time. Things happened." Sarah sobbed into her hands. "He said it was to protect us, to keep the family safe. The shame would have destroyed everything." A cold void opened in my chest. "What things?" "The women," David said, staring at his own clenched fists on my table. "The ones who went missing? He brought them here. After." The world narrowed to the grain of the oak table. I remembered Harold out there at night. "Tending his roses," he'd say. The extra bags of soil. The smell of lime, he claimed, was for the hydrangeas. I saw it all now, a monstrous puzzle snapping into place. "And you knew?" The question hung in the air of my sunny kitchen. Sarah looked up, her eyes desperate. "We found out. Years ago. We helped him. Make them disappear. We were kids, Mom. He was our dad. We were scared." David's confession was a monotone of horror. "We helped him bury them. In your garden. He said it was our secret. The family's secret." I looked from my son's guilty face to my daughter's shattered one, then out the window to the growing pile of evidence on my lawn. The foundation of my life was not just cracked, it was built on a charnel house. The two people I loved most had tended it with me for decades. I smiled then, a thin, brittle movement of my lips. They mistook it for shock. But I was remembering every family dinner, every birthday, every hug in this house of lies. I stored each one away, like a seed for a different kind of garden. The police asked me to wait in the living room. A young officer brought me a glass of water I didn't touch. Through the bay window, I saw the third bag being carefully lifted. My mind was clear, eerily quiet. All I wanted was to get through this hour. It would cost me my past, my love, my understanding of the last 50 years. Detective Miller came in, wiping his boots. "Mrs. Wilkins, we're going to need a formal statement. This will take a while." His voice was gentle, which made it worse. "Of course," I said. My hands were still in my lap. David and Sarah hovered in the doorway, a united front of panic. "She's in shock, Detective," David said, using his boardroom voice. "Maybe this can wait." "It can't," the detective said, not unkindly. As he asked his first question, about Harold's habits, his time alone, Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled. "It's Michael," she hissed to David. "Their eldest, my grandson, at college." "Not now," David whispered back, sharp. But I heard. I saw the frantic, silent communication between them. They weren't just worried about me or the law. They were coordinating a story, protecting the family secret still. Their fear pressed on me, immediate and intimate. They were my children, and they were my jailers, desperate to keep me in the dark narrative they'd built. I gave my statement, a recitation of a happy, blind marriage. I mentioned Harold's love for his garden, his nighttime puttering. I was the dutiful, ignorant wife. Detective Miller took notes, his eyes soft with pity. That pity was my weapon. Let them all think I was a fool. When he stepped outside to consult, David knelt before me. "Mum, listen, we have a lawyer. We'll get through this, but you have to stick with us. We're family. What we did, it was to keep our family together." I looked into my son's eyes, the boy I'd sung to sleep, and saw a stranger calculating a loss. He wasn't comforting his mother. He was securing an alibi. The real shock wasn't in the garden. It was right here in my floral armchair. My own children viewed me as a liability to be managed. I placed a trembling hand on his cheek. "I just want my family safe," I whispered, echoing his own poisonous words. He sagged with relief. He believed me. But as he stood, my gaze drifted past him to the hall table, to the drawer where Harold kept his important papers. Our will, the deeds, the power of attorney forms he'd insisted we sign just in case. David had been made executor. Sarah had a durable power of attorney over my health care. They had everything legally sewn up, a final layer of control. The detective returned. "We'll need you to come to the station, Mrs. Wilkins. More questions." I nodded, the frail widow. But inside, a new resolve hardened, cold and sharp. They had used the law to bury their secrets. I would use it to unearth them. Now I knew what I had to do. Get to that drawer before they did. The fluorescent lights hummed at the police station. Detective Miller and his partner, Cruz, questioned me in a small beige room that smelled of stale coffee. I stuck to my script. I knew nothing. Harold was a good, quiet man. I tended the house, he tended the garden. "Unusual soil or mulch deliveries?" Cruz asked. "He liked his roses," I said. They showed me photographs of missing women from years past. Young faces in old pictures turned my stomach to stone. One was a waitress from our diner. I'd once admired her necklace. Harold had said nothing. After 2 hours, they let me go. "Don't leave town," Miller said. David waited in the lobby, his face drawn. "Let's get you home, Mum." "I need to stop at the pharmacy for my nerves," I said, my voice weak. He didn't argue. At the drugstore, I asked him to wait in the car. Inside, I went straight to the payphone near the restrooms. My hands were steady as I dialed my own house. Sarah answered. I disguised my voice, pitching it higher with a quaver. "County records here, verifying property documents for 214 Maple Lane." "We didn't request anything," she said, sharp, then pausing. "What documents?" "A title search. Must be a clerical error. Sorry to bother." I hung up. I had set something in motion. Now Sarah thought someone was investigating the house, shaking the foundation of their inheritance. I bought aspirin and returned to the car. David was on his phone, whispering urgently about a wrong number and checking files. He gave me a strained smile. "All set?" We drove home in silence. The garden was now a cordoned-off crime scene, bathed in portable lights. The rose bushes were gone, replaced by a gaping, muddy wound. My home felt foreign. Inside, Sarah stood in the hallway, the hall table drawer pulled out, papers in her hands. She jumped. "Just looking for the homeowner's insurance," she stammered. "For the damage." I knew she was really searching for the will and the property deed, securing their assets after my phone call planted doubt. I walked past her, up to the bedroom I'd shared with Harold. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart hammering. They were scared. Good. I went to my carved wooden jewellery box from Harold. Beneath the false bottom where I kept my mother's pearls, I found an old key. It fit a safety deposit box at First Federal, one in my name only from a small inheritance decades ago. Harold had forgotten it, and so had the children. Inside that box was my own will, drafted before the children were born, leaving everything to a charity for veterans' families. It was likely outdated, but it was a start, a thread of my truth, buried deeper than Harold's secrets. Tomorrow, I would pull on that thread. Tonight, I listened to my children whisper in the kitchen below, their fear a quiet music. They were already digging their own legal grave, and I had just handed them the shovel. The next morning, the house was silent. David and Sarah spoke quietly in the kitchen over coffee they didn't offer me. I made my own, moving slowly to keep up my act of being confused and frail. I needed to reach the bank without them suspecting. "We're meeting with the lawyer at 10, David said, avoiding my eyes. "He'll advise us on the next steps for all of us." "I should be there," I murmured. "It's better if we handle things, Mom," Sarah insisted. "We have your power of attorney. We'll look after your interests." I nodded, looking down. "I think I'll go to the library, read the paper, try to clear my head." They shared a glance. The library seemed safe. "Don't talk to anyone," David warned, "especially reporters." "Who would I talk to?" I replied. With my purse, I walked the few blocks to the library. The autumn air was crisp. I didn't enter. Instead, I went to the bus stop and used the cash I always carried, what Harold called my mad money, to take the number 14 downtown. Time felt urgent. They were with the lawyer, securing their control. I had to hurry. First Federal Bank was an old marble building. My knees trembled as I approached the manager, Ms. Gable. She remembered me from mine and Harold's joint accounts. "Oh, Eleanor, I heard about Harold. I'm so sorry," she said softly. "Thank you, Marianne," I said. "I need to get into my safety deposit box. Number 147. She asked for my key and ID, then led me to the vault. Inside the private room, I opened the box. There lay the old will, savings bonds in my name, a deed to a small lot upstate, and photos of my parents. But beneath the bonds, I found a small leather notebook I didn't recognize. Opening it, I saw Harold's neat handwriting, lists of bank account numbers, routing numbers, and codes like D Trust and S Fund. These were secret accounts for David and Sarah. The dates started just after the first disappearance. He had been sending them money, hush money. My husband hadn't just pressured our children. He'd made them financially part of his crimes. They were paid accomplices. I took the notebook, the will, and the bonds, leaving the photos. My purse felt heavy with this discovery. Ms. Gable walked me out. "Are you all right, Eleanor?" I managed a weak smile. "Just reminiscing. Thank you." Outside, I saw Sarah's blue sedan slow down. She was staring at me, her face shifting from confusion to sharp suspicion. She hadn't gone to the lawyer. She'd followed me. The leash was shorter now, and she knew I was straining against it. Sarah pulled up and got out, walking quickly toward me. "Mum, what are you doing here?" She tried to sound concerned, but I heard the strain. "I came to the bank," I said, holding my purse close. "I just wanted to feel normal for a minute." She looked at the bank doors, then back at me. "Did you take money out? You should have told me. We're handling all that now." Her words were blunt. "I have my own account, Sarah, from before your father." I put a little strength in my voice, the mother she remembered. It surprised her. "We need to sort everything together, with all the legal fees." She waved a hand, studying me. "Did you talk to anyone in there?" Just Marianne Gable. She was kind. I began walking toward the bus stop, making her follow. Mum? Stop. She took my arm, her grip firm. It felt like being held, not helped. You can't wander off. People might be looking for you. Get in the car. I'll drive you home. Her touch was a sharp reminder of their control. I wanted to pull away, but I didn't. I let her guide me to the passenger seat. She was anxious, and it filled the quiet car. As she drove, she asked questions. What did you do at the bank? Did you sign anything? I visited my safety deposit box, I said, looking out the window. My old will is in there, Sarah. It leaves everything to charity. The car wobbled a little. That's old. It's not valid anymore. Dad's will matters, and we have the power of attorney. She said it like she was reminding herself. I just wanted to see it, I said softly. The rest of the ride was quiet and tense. David's car was in the driveway when we got home. He was waiting inside, looking angry. Where was she? He asked Sarah. She went to the bank. She has a safety deposit box with an old will, Sarah said, her voice tight. David looked right at me, all pretense of kindness gone. Give me the key, Mom. No, I said, quiet but clear. That one word hung in the air. They were shocked. I had never refused them so directly. David stepped closer. His size suddenly felt large. This is serious. We're dealing with Dad's legal mess to protect this family. We have to manage everything. You aren't helping. I don't need help managing what's mine, I said. I turned and walked toward the stairs, feeling their angry stares. If you won't cooperate, we'll have to look at other options, David said, his voice low. For your own good, your mental state seems fragile. The threat was plain. They could have a doctor declare me unfit. They could put me in a home where I'd be no trouble. They weren't just guiding me anymore. They were ready to remove me. The quiet fight was over. This was a real war, right here in my own house, and the battle had just begun. David's threat about my mental state lingered. I didn't turn around. I kept walking upstairs, each step a quiet rebellion. I just needed to get to the bedroom and think. I'd already lost their trust. I heard their hissed conversation below. We need that key and that notebook, David said. Sarah shushed him. I closed my bedroom door and leaned against it, my heart thudding. The small key and the leather notebook were in my purse. I needed a better hiding place. I scanned the room. My eyes fell on Harold's old recliner. I knelt beside it, feeling along the underside of the fabric skirt. My fingers found a rough seam. A spring had poked through years ago, and I'd stitched a patch over it. I took my sewing scissors, snipped the threads, and slipped the key and notebook inside the chair. I re-stitched the patch loosely. It looked untouched. A soft knock came. Mum? It was Sarah. Can I come in? I'm sorry we yelled. I opened the door, trying to look weary and confused. I'm just tired, dear. She looked past me, her eyes sweeping the room. She wasn't checking on me. She was looking for something. We're worried. All this stress. Maybe you should see Dr. Evans for a checkup. Dr. Evans was their friend from the country club. A checkup meant a competency evaluation. It was a trap. Maybe next week, I murmured. She left, seemingly satisfied. But I felt like a prisoner. I needed an ally outside this house. I waited until I heard the television downstairs, then took my old address book. My finger trailed past old friends and landed on a name, Martin Brewer. He was Harold's former lawyer from the Veterans Hall, a sharp man who'd retired. I'd never liked him, but he knew the law. I called from the bedroom phone, my voice low. Martin? It's Eleanor Wilkins. A pause. Eleanor, I heard. Terrible business. His voice was dry. I need legal advice. About me. My children are trying to use power of attorney to control everything. Another pause. That's a delicate family matter. It's a legal matter, I insisted. I can pay, in cash, from an account they don't know about. That changed his tone. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., the diner on Route 9. Come alone. He hung up. I put the receiver down just as my door pushed open. David stood there, his face hard. He'd been listening. Who are you calling, Mum? He asked, his voice dangerously calm. I was being watched every second. I was calling Father Joseph, I lied, turning to face my son, David, for spiritual guidance. Is that not allowed either? I let my voice tremble, playing the wounded mother. He blinked, disarmed by the mention of our parish priest. Of course it is. I just worry. He didn't believe me, but he had no proof. Dinner's ready. He left, leaving the door open as a command to come down. I ate Sarah's meal, tasting nothing. The television news was on, but said nothing about our address or garden. David had connections. Maybe he'd already pressured someone to keep it quiet, just to survive the evening and make my meeting tomorrow. After dinner, Sarah helped me wash up. She washed while I dried, a ritual from her childhood now used to monitor me. You know, Mum, she said, scrubbing a plate, we're only trying to do what's best. The legal stuff is so complicated. I know, dear, I said. It's just, I feel so useless. She softened. You're not useless. Then she added, let us be strong for you. Later, I heard a car door shut softly. Peering through the blinds, I saw a man with a briefcase. David let him in. They spoke in the foyer, then went into the study. It was their lawyer, making a house call after hours. They were drawing up battle plans, and I was the territory. I crept to the top of the stairs. The study door was ajar. I caught fragments. Petition for temporary guardianship. Medical assessment. Clearly distressed. My blood ran cold. They were moving fast. Then the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Everyone froze. David answered. It was Detective Cruz, standing in the porch light. Sorry for the hour. We need to take another look at the garden shed. We have a warrant for tools. My children's secret meeting was now bathed in police floodlights. The lawyer slipped out the back. The sudden chaos was a gift. In the confusion, I retreated to my room. This was my chance to prepare for tomorrow. I dressed in dark clothes and packed a small tote bag. Cash, a bottle of water, my medication, and a photograph of my parents. I hid it behind my winter coats. Then I lay in bed, fully dressed, waiting for the house to settle. But sleep didn't come. A cold understanding chilled me. The lawyer's visit wasn't just about me. They were panicking over Harold's secrets, the money trails in that notebook. If I was declared incompetent, anything I said, like about that ledger, could be dismissed as the ramblings of a confused old woman. They weren't just trying to control the money, they were trying to silence me. The game had just become much more dangerous. The house was finally quiet. Grey dawn light came through the blinds. I heard David snoring from the guest room. He'd decided to stay. Sarah was asleep down the hall. I had to be out by 9:15 for my 10 a.m. meeting. I moved quietly, getting my tote bag. I crept downstairs, avoiding the creaky step. In the kitchen, I wrote a note on the grocery pad. Gone for a walk. Need air. Back soon. I put it on the table, unlocked the back door, and slipped out. I walked 3 blocks and called a taxi from a gas station. I gave the address for the Route 9 diner. Riding through my suburb, every tidy house felt like a lie now. You never know what's really going on inside. Martin Brewer was in a back booth, drinking coffee. He looked older, but his eyes were the same. I slid in across from him. "You came alone," he said. "As you asked." He nodded. "Tell me the situation." Briefly. I told him about the power of attorney, the threat of guardianship, and the secret ledger of payments. I didn't mention the awful things we'd found. I stuck to the financial control my children were trying to have. Martin listened. "The power of attorney documents, are they durable? For finances and healthcare?" "Yes. Harold had us all sign them years ago. I was too trusting. Revoking them is simple. You sign a form and notify everyone. The trick is doing it before they use them." He sipped his coffee. "The guardianship is harder. They'll get a doctor to say you're incapable. You need your own doctor now to say you're competent. I know someone." "What about the will?" "Harold's will names David as executor. If you revoke David's power, it shows conflict. You can challenge the will, but it's messy." He leaned forward. "The ledger, that's your leverage. If those payments are connected to Harold's business and your children took them, that's serious. They know it. That's why they're trying to lock you away." It was a fight for my freedom, not just my money. "What do I do?" I asked. He laid out a plan. First, see his doctor friend this afternoon. Second, sign revocation papers in his office. Third, put the ledger in a new safety deposit box we could both access. Once you revoke their authority and have a doctor's note, their petition falls apart. Then we decide about the ledger. I agreed. He paid and left. I ordered tea, my mind racing. I had a path. But looking out the window, I saw Sarah's blue sedan slow on the highway, then speed up. She hadn't seen me. She was probably going to my house after finding my note. The clock was ticking. I finished my tea and called another cab. As it pulled away, I saw a patrol car turn into the diner lot. Just a local cop, but it felt like a sign. My children could involve the whole town, painting me as a confused old woman. I had to move faster than their story. My appointment was with Dr. Levin, an older woman who was very direct. She asked me about current events and had me do some simple memory tests. She also asked about my finances. "You seem perfectly competent to me, Mrs. Wilkins," she finally said, signing a form. Stressed, certainly, but clear-headed. She gave me a copy of her evaluation. Then it was on to Martin's office. It was a small wood-panelled room that smelled of old paper. He had the papers ready to revoke the power of attorney. My hand shook only a little as I signed my name, Eleanor Wilkins, over and over, taking back my legal rights from my children. He notarized everything. "I'll have copies sent to the bank, the credit union, and your doctor today," he said. "What about the ledger?" I asked. He held out his hand. I paused, then took the key from my purse. "It's in a safety deposit box at First Federal, box 147. You'll need my key and your own ID to get in, once you're added." He took the key. "I'll add myself today. It's safer with me for now." His tone left no room for discussion. I had just given my only real evidence to a man I wasn't sure I trusted, but I had no other choice. He drove me home. "Lay low," he advised. "Act normal. When they serve the guardianship papers, we'll be ready." David's car was gone when we arrived. Martin dropped me off and left. The house was empty. A heavy, waiting silence filled the rooms. I had done what I needed to do, but I felt terribly vulnerable. I went to the kitchen. My note was gone. In its place was a single sheet of paper, a notice of petition for guardianship filed in county court. A hearing was set for 5 days away. They hadn't waited. They'd filed this morning. The paper felt cold in my hands. I heard a car in the driveway. Sarah and David got out, along with a woman in a serious pantsuit. A social worker, I guessed. They were bringing in reinforcements. I had only minutes. I rushed to Harold's recliner. I reached into the loose stitching where I'd hidden my things. The key was gone. The leather notebook was gone. My heart sank. David must have searched my room after I left, but then my fingers brushed against something else. A small, cold, rectangular object. I pulled it out. It was a microcassette tape, the kind Harold used in his old dictaphone. On the label, in his handwriting, was a date from 15 years ago. It matched the first entry in the ledger. I shoved the tape into my pocket just as the front door opened. I stood up, smoothing my shirt, facing my children and the stranger. They had the law and a professional on their side. They thought they had taken everything from me. But in my pocket, I held a secret even my late husband had buried. I had no intention of giving this one up. The woman from Adult Protective Services introduced herself as Gail. "Your children are very concerned, Mrs. Wilkins, after your absence this morning." "I went for a walk and saw my lawyer," I said calmly. "I've revoked your power of attorney." I let the words hang. Sarah gasped. David's face tightened. Gail glanced between us, clipboard ready. "The petition mentions confusion. I have a new evaluation stating I'm competent." I handed her Dr. Levin's report. David quickly spoke up. "Mum saw that doctor once. Our family doctor, who's known her for years, is worried. We think she's being influenced, maybe financially exploited." The gall of it left me speechless. They were flipping the script perfectly. "I'd like to speak with Mrs. Wilkins alone," Gail said. My children left reluctantly. Gail's manner softened a little. "They seem genuinely worried. They're worried about jail," I said bluntly. "My husband was a murderer. My children helped hide it and were paid. I've given a ledger of payments to my lawyer. They want me declared incompetent to dismiss that evidence. This is about a cover-up, not my care." Gail's pen stopped moving. "Those are serious allegations." "They are serious crimes. Check with Detectives Miller and Cruz. Ask if they're looking into David and Sarah's finances." She made a note and promised to follow up. After she left, my children came back in, their masks gone. "What did you say?" David demanded. "The truth." "You'll destroy this family," Sarah cried, tears in her eyes. "Your father did that," I said quietly. "You just helped him bury it." That night, the house was silent. I stayed in my room, thinking of the micro-cassette tape. I needed to listen, but I had no player. Harold's old dictaphone was likely in his study, which David now used. I waited until after midnight. The study door was locked. I fetched the spare key from above the kitchen door, a secret from when the kids were teens. It still worked. Inside, I used a small flashlight. Harold's desk was neat. In a bottom drawer, I found the clunky grey dictaphone. My hands shook as I inserted the tiny tape and pressed play. Harold's steady voice filled the quiet room. Log, October 12th. Subject resolved. Disposal via East Bed, per David's assistance. Sarah handled the vehicle cleaning. Payment transferred to their college funds as agreed. No issues. The family remains secure. I stopped the tape, feeling sick. It was an audio log. He'd documented their involvement in his crimes. He hadn't just trapped them, he'd recorded it. This tape was the final proof. But giving it to the police would mean letting the world hear my children help dispose of a body. It would end them. I sat in my husband's chair in the dark, holding the evidence that my whole family was a crime scene. The cliff's edge I stood on wasn't legal now. It was moral. I had no idea which way to jump. I hid the dictaphone and the tape behind some old encyclopedias on the study shelf. The weight of Harold's voice was still in my ears. I just needed to get through the night. This knowledge cost me my last shred of denial about my children. Back in my room, I didn't sleep. At dawn, I heard David on the phone downstairs, his voice a low, angry rumble. "She's getting advice from somewhere. Brewer, I think? Yeah. We need to push the hearing up." They were accelerating. The guardianship hearing was my deadline. I had to decide what to do with the tape before then. Sarah brought me toast, her eyes red. "Please, Mum, stop fighting us. Let us take care of you." She was pleading, but it felt like a threat wrapped in tissue paper. "I am being taken care of," I said. "By myself." Her face hardened, and she left. The performance was over. The love was gone, if it was ever truly there. They saw me as the last loose thread. I needed to copy the tape. I couldn't risk Martin having the only copy. I remembered a little electronics shop near the library that still repaired old gadgets. I would go there today. I dressed and announced I was going to the grocery store. David insisted on driving me. "It's no trouble," he said, his smile tight. He was my chauffeur and my warden. At the store, I bought a few things. Then I said, "I need to stop at the library for a large print book. I'll just be a minute." He waited in the car, watching the entrance. Inside, I went straight to the payphone near the restrooms. I called the electronics shop. "Do you have equipment to duplicate a microcassette tape?" I asked. The man said yes, for a fee, and it would take an hour. An hour I didn't have. "I'll come another time," I said, defeated. I walked back toward the exit, passing the circulation desk. The librarian, Mrs. Finch, an old friend, looked up. "Eleanor, how are you holding up?" Her eyes were full of pity. The whole town knew. "I'm managing," I said. Then an idea struck me. "Janice, do you still have those old audio players for the visually impaired? The ones with cassette decks?" Her eyes lit up. "In the back, yes. We keep them for historical recordings. Would you like to borrow one?" It was a risk. David might see it, but it was my only chance. "Yes, please. And some blank tapes, if you have any." She disappeared and returned with a bulky player and 2 blank microcassettes. I slipped them into my tote bag, burying them under my groceries. "Thank you, Janice. You're a lifesaver." I walked back to the car, my heart pounding. David glanced at the bag. "Find your book?" "They didn't have it," I said, looking out the window. The player felt huge in the bag, a ticking bomb on my lap. I had the tool. Now I needed the time alone to use it. The house felt like a silent war zone. David was in the living room on his laptop. Sarah was in the basement doing laundry. I took my groceries to the kitchen. After putting them away, I announced I had a headache and was going to lie down. David barely looked up. Upstairs, I locked my door. My hands were steady as I got out the player and a blank tape. I retrieved Harold's dictaphone and connected them. I pressed record and play. His voice was clinical. Log, June 5th. Subject attempted to contact police. Intercepted by David. Situation contained. Disposal via the New Roses. Sarah provided an alibi. I stopped it. My stomach churned. My son had intercepted someone. My daughter had lied for them. They were part of it. The tape was a confession that could bury them all. I made 2 copies. I hid the original back in the study, inside a hollowed-out book. 1 copy went into my jewelry box. The other, I sealed in a plastic bag. I needed to get this copy out of the house. I thought of Martin Brewer, but I didn't trust him. He had Harold's ledger. Gail from APS was due to call. She could be an ally or believe my children. The phone rang, making me jump. It was her. Mrs. Wilkins, I spoke with Detective Cruz. He confirmed the financial investigation is active. That supports your statement. I thanked her, feeling a little relief. But, she said, the guardianship hearing is different. Your children's lawyer is pushing for an emergency doctor's evaluation tomorrow. If you refuse, the judge may see that poorly. They were boxing me in. I'll be there, I said, my mind racing. After hanging up, I looked at the bagged tape. I needed a hiding place, somewhere nobody would look. I thought of the cemetery, but I had to get out of the house first. I heard Sarah on the stairs. Mum, I'm going to the pharmacy. Need anything? It was my chance. I unlocked the door. My arthritis cream, please, and I'd like to come. I need some air. She hesitated, then agreed. I slipped the tape into my housecoat pocket. In the car, I pretended to fumble with my seatbelt. Oh, I forgot my wallet. I'll get your cream, Sarah said, impatient. No, I have a coupon in my bedroom. Just turn around, it'll be quick. I made my voice sound flustered. She sighed, turned back, and pulled into the driveway. Hurry. David was still in the living room. Back so soon? Forgot my coupon, I chirped. I went upstairs, not to my room, but to Harold's closet. I took an old, wide-brimmed hat from the top shelf. I folded the plastic bag flat and tucked it inside the hat's inner band. I placed the hat back. It was a temporary spot, but it was outside my room. I grabbed my wallet and returned to the car. As we drove away, I looked back at my home. I had just hidden a weapon in my husband's closet. The war was everywhere now. The doctor's office was chilly and clinical. Dr. Evans greeted me with a too hearty handshake. Eleanor, David, Sarah, good to see you. He ignored my lawyer, Martin Brewer, who had come with me. My client is here for an evaluation, Martin said flatly. Of course, Dr. Evans replied, leading me into his office. We'll just have a chat. David and Sarah waited outside with Martin. The pressure was awful. This man's opinion could decide my independence. He asked me simple questions. The date, the president, to count backward by sevens. I answered correctly. Then he leaned in. Your children mention erratic financial decisions, trying to give large sums to strangers. That's not true, I said. They're worried. The stress of Harold's passing. It can cloud judgment, he said, his tone gentle and patronizing. Sometimes we need to let our children help. I have helped myself. I hired a lawyer. Martin Brewer. He nodded. He has a certain reputation, not the best influence for someone feeling vulnerable. He was painting a picture. A confused widow led astray. I had to stop it. I found a tape, I said suddenly. Harold's tape. He recorded his activities, and my children's part in them. Dr. Evans's smile stiffened. What activities? The criminal kind. The kind the police are looking into. If you declare me incompetent, I will see that tape is entered as evidence. The press would be interested, and your professional board might question why you ignored evidence of a crime. The room went quiet. I'd played my card too soon, but I had no choice. His friendly manner disappeared. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you. My mind is sound. My children's legal situation is not. Evaluate that. He sat back, steepling his fingers. After a long moment, he stood. Wait here. He left. I heard muffled, tense voices in the hall with David and Sarah. My accusation had disrupted their plan. He returned alone, his face blank. Given the circumstances, I believe this evaluation should wait until after the police investigation. It would be unethical to proceed. It was a retreat. He wouldn't risk his reputation. He walked me out. Mrs. Wilkins is free to go. I've advised your children a medical evaluation is inappropriate now. David was furious. Sarah looked scared. Martin gave me an impressed glance. We left in silence. In Martin's car, he asked, "What did you say?" I told him about the tape. Martin's grip on the wheel tightened. "You shouldn't have done that. Now they know it exists. They'll turn your house upside down looking for it." "Let them look," I said. But a cold fear settled in my chest. He was right. I had warned them. The race to find the tape was now a sprint, and I'd just given my children a head start. The house felt like it was under siege. David and Sarah moved through it with a quiet urgency, not speaking to me, just searching. I heard drawers opening and closing. They were looking for the tape. My only goal was to survive the night and get the original to my lawyer, Martin, for safekeeping in the morning. It meant giving up my last hope for reconciliation with my children. I went to the study for a book. David followed, watching my every move. My heart hammered as I pulled out the heavy military history volume, feeling the slight weight of the tape inside it. I slipped a different book off the shelf. "Since when do you read about tank battles, Mum?" David asked, his voice flat. "I'm full of surprises," I said, walking past him with the tape hidden by the larger book. I took it to my room and hid it in the one place I was sure they wouldn't look, inside a box of sanitary pads at the back of my bathroom cabinet, a place for a secret only a woman would understand. Later, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. "It has to be here," Sarah whispered fiercely. She wouldn't have given it to Brewer yet. "We have to find it before the hearing," David replied. "If that tape gets out—" I knew then they would get more desperate. That night, a sound woke me. My doorknob turned slowly. It was locked, but then a key scratched in the lock. They had the house keys. I lay perfectly still, feigning sleep. The door opened. A flashlight beam swept across my floor, my dresser, my nightstand. It was David, searching my room while I slept. The violation was absolute. I listened to him open drawers, rustle through papers. After what felt like 10 minutes, he left, relocking the door. I lay in the dark, trembling with a cold rage. In the morning, I called Martin. "I have the original. We need to meet somewhere public." "The courthouse steps, noon," he said. "I'll have the paperwork for the safety deposit box." I dressed carefully. I took the tape from its hiding place, put it in a small sealed envelope, and secured it inside my bra. Let them try to take it from there. At 11:30, I told Sarah I was going for a walk. She stood, blocking the front door. "I don't think that's a good idea." "I am not a prisoner," I said, my voice low. We stared at each other. For a moment, I saw the little girl she was, scared of the dark. Then it was gone. "Fine," she said, stepping aside. "But I'm driving you." It was a compromise I had to accept. She drove in silence. As we neared the courthouse, I saw Martin waiting. "Stop here," I said. She pulled over. I got out. "I'll be right back." I walked toward Martin. I was steps away when a black sedan pulled up to the curb. Detective Cruz got out. "Mrs. Wilkins, we need to talk. Now." Martin stepped forward. "She's in a meeting with her attorney." Cruz ignored him. "We have a warrant to search your house again, and we'd like you to come answer questions about financial records your lawyer provided." He glanced at Martin. "Your children are already at the station." My plan shattered. Martin had given them the ledger without telling me. Now the police were involved. The tape in my bra felt like a live wire. I had to decide, right there on the courthouse steps, who to trust with the final truth. Detective Cruz led me to the station. Martin followed in his car. My children, Cruz told me, were in separate rooms for questioning about the financial ledger. I sat in the familiar beige room. He offered coffee, but I declined. The ledger shows regular large payments from your husband to your adult children, starting over 15 years ago, he said. Can you explain? I can't, I said. I didn't know it existed. He studied me. Your lawyer gave it to us. He also mentioned you might have a recording. Martin had forced the issue, leaving me on my own. I might have it, I said carefully. Where is it? I looked at the mirror. I need a guarantee. If I give you evidence, my legal autonomy must be protected. I can't promise that, Cruz said. But evidence of a crime takes precedence. It would complicate anyone's attempt to gain guardianship. It was the best I'd get. The tape was a weight. Keeping it protected my children, who had become my jailers. Giving it up ended the family. I reached into my blouse and placed the sealed envelope on the table. My husband kept audio logs. This implicates David and Sarah. Cruz called a technician, who gloved up and took the microcassette away for analysis. You'll need to wait, Cruz said. They put me in a waiting area. Martin sat beside me. You did the right thing? You had no right to give them the ledger, I whispered. It forced their hand. Now the police have the whole story. I felt hollow. Hours later, Cruz returned, his face grim. The tape is authentic. It's your husband's voice. The contents are conclusive. We'll be charging David and Sarah as accessories and for related financial crimes. It was over. Can I see them? I asked. He nodded. Separately. Briefly. They brought Sarah first. She looked small. When she saw me, she cried, Mum, I'm sorry. We were so scared of him. I was scared of him too, I said, but I didn't help him. Her sobs were her only answer. I felt nothing. Then David. He was defiant. You betrayed your own family. You stopped being my family when you dug a grave in my rose garden, I said quietly. You were his partners, not my children. He had no reply. I turned and left. Cruz drove me home. The house was empty. A crime scene again. I couldn't stay. I packed a single suitcase with my parents' photo, my medication, and some cash. I called a taxi to a modest hotel near the highway. Sitting on the sterile bed, I realized my revenge was complete. I had used the law and taken back my freedom. But the victory was ashes. I had no husband, no children, no home. Just the quiet truth. For the first time in 50 years, my life was my own. The thought was terrifying, and it was all I had left. The hotel room was a beige box. I had one suitcase and a silence so deep it rang in my ears. What I needed to do was simple. Get through the next 24 hours without breaking. I had lost everything familiar. Martin Brewer called. The house is still an active crime scene, but they'll release it soon. You'll need to decide what to do with it. I'm selling it, I said, my voice flat even to my own ears. There's the matter of Harold's will. David is named executor, but he's now indicted. We can petition the court to appoint you as administrator. It's a process. Everything was a process that cost money. I used the cash from my secret account to pay Martin and keep the hotel room for a week. It gave me time. I forced myself to go to a diner for breakfast. People glanced at me, then away. News travels fast in a small town. I was the widow of the monster, the mother of accomplices, a pariah. Back in my room, I made a list. See a realtor, find a small apartment, see a doctor for a new prescription. Each task felt mountainous. A knock at the door made my heart stop. It was Detective Cruz. Can I come in? He stood in the cramped room. We've completed the initial review of the tape. It's enough. They've both been formally charged. They're requesting bail. Will they get it? It's likely. They have no prior records. They'll be released, probably with ankle monitors. They can't contact you. He paused. They asked about the house, their things. It's not their house, I said. He nodded. I'll tell them. Also, we found more. In the shed, buried under tools. More tapes. Dozens. The room tilted. I sat on the edge of the bed. Have you listened? Some. They're detailed. He looked at me with that pity I was beginning to hate. You should prepare. When this goes to trial, it will be very public. I felt a crushing wave of shame I hadn't earned, but would drown in anyway. My children's faces would be on the news, my husband's crimes dissected. My quiet life was gone forever. After he left, I felt a strange calm. The worst had happened. There was no more fear of discovery. It was all discovered. I called a realtor I found online, a cheerful woman named Brenda. We made an appointment to see the house tomorrow. It's a beautiful property, she said, not knowing. It was, I replied. That night, I slept a solid, dreamless sleep for the first time in weeks. In the morning, I dressed in simple clothes and took a taxi to my street. Brenda was waiting, her smile fading as she saw the police tape and the torn-up earth. The life I knew was over. But as I put the key in the lock, I knew the next part of my life would be my own. Brenda the realtor recovered her professionalism quickly. We'll focus on the structure, the lot size. The landscaping can be redone. She walked through the rooms, avoiding the garden view. I followed her, seeing the house as a stranger might. It was just a building. The memories here were poisoned. Sell it as is, I told her. Furniture, everything. I don't want any of it. She quoted a price that seemed fair. I signed the papers on the kitchen counter, the same spot where David had confessed. The house would be listed by the end of the week. My next stop was a small apartment complex for seniors near the library. The manager, a kind man named Ray, showed me a one-bedroom unit on the ground floor. It had a tiny patio facing a communal garden. It was clean, empty, and held no history. I wrote a check for the first month's rent. I bought a folding chair, a cot, a kettle, and a lamp. I had them delivered. That afternoon, I sat in the empty living room on the chair, drinking tea. The silence here was different. It was mine. A knock on the patio door. An elderly woman with bright eyes waved. I opened the sliding glass door. I'm Marge, next door. Welcome. Need anything? Just peace, I said. She smiled. You came to the right place. It was the first normal interaction in months. It felt like a lifeline. Back at the hotel, Martin called again. Bail was granted. David and Sarah were released to home confinement at their own residences. They can't come within 500 feet of you. A new, low-grade dread settled in. They were out. They were in town. The next day, as I was packing my suitcase to move to the apartment, the hotel desk called. A package for you, Mrs. Wilkins. I went down. It was a small, flat box, no return address. My hands shook as I opened it in the lobby. Inside, on a bed of tissue paper, was a single dried rose petal, the deep red of a peace rose. A note in Sarah's looping handwriting. I'm sorry. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea, a reminder of the garden, of the family we pretended to be. It wasn't about the law now. It was about feelings, a ghost hand squeezing my heart. They knew where I was staying. The fragile peace of my new apartment felt invaded before I'd even slept there. I threw the petal in the lobby trash. But the message was received. They were sorry for themselves, not for the dead. My resolution hardened into something cold and final. I would not be drawn back in by sentiment. I had my own path to walk, and it led away from them. I moved into the apartment with 2 suitcases. The first night, I ate toast on my folding chair and watched the light fade in the garden. It was enough. A week later, the house sold. The buyers were a young couple from the city. They wanted a project. They didn't ask about the garden. The money went into a new account, only in my name. With Martin's help, I updated my will. Everything would go to a charity that helped the families of missing persons. It felt like a small, quiet penance. One afternoon, Marge invited me for coffee. Her apartment was cluttered with photos of grandchildren. We sat at her small table. She didn't ask about my past. We talked about books and the best day to go to the supermarket. "I have a friend in the gardening club," she said. "We meet Tuesdays. You should come." I hadn't thought I'd ever touch soil again. But the next Tuesday, I went. It was in the community room. People were potting succulents. The smell of earth was sharp and clean. I took a small clay pot and a spiky little plant. My hands didn't shake as I pressed the soil around its roots. Life became small rituals. Coffee with Marge, gardening club, walks to the library. The trial date was set, then postponed. My lawyer told me I might have to testify. I said I would. One morning, I saw a familiar car parked discreetly down the street from my complex. It was Sarah's. She was just sitting there, staring at the building. I felt a chill, but no panic. I picked up my phone and called Detective Cruz. He said he'd send a car to remind her of the restraining order. The police car came. Sarah drove away. She never came that close again. The seasons changed. On the anniversary of the day they dug up the roses, I bought myself a single-piece rose bush. I planted it in a large pot on my patio. It was my garden now. I controlled the soil. The trial finally began. I attended every day, sitting in the back. I heard the tapes played in court. I saw my children's faces, pale and broken. I felt nothing. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, there was no victory, only a final solemn click, like a door closing. Afterward, I went home to my apartment. Marge had left a plate of cookies at my door. I made tea and took it to the patio. The sun was warm. My rose bush had a single perfect bloom. I sat and watched a bee move from petal to petal. I had left the past behind. The present was this chair, this sun, this fragile, persistent bloom. It was quiet. It was mine. And for the first time in a very long time, it was enough.